Viewers and listeners are welcome to this channel. In today's video, I'm going to compare New York State with New Mexico State. I'm going to compare these two states because these are the states I've resided in for a longer period of time. If it's your first time coming to the United States, I want to take your time to watch this video, and you can use the website I'm going to use to compare almost every state if you know the zip code of the cities in those states. Let's start. Let's first compare the average rent of the major cities of each state. I'm going to use apartment.com to find the average rent. You can use any other website, but the prices are going to differ a little bit. So I'm going to do the Bronx in New York City because that is where most of the Black people reside. So if you live in the Bronx, according to apartment.com, the average rent for a studio is $1,569 per month. One bedroom is $1,591 per month. Two bedrooms, $2,045 per month. And three bedrooms will also cost you $2,384 per month. Now that we have checked the average rent in the Bronx, New York, let's check the average rent in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So according to the same apartment.com, the average rent for a studio in Albuquerque, New Mexico is $815 per month. One bedroom is $1,133 per month. Two bedrooms is also $1,394 per month. And then three bedrooms is $1,733 per month. Now that we have finished comparing the rent, let's check the minimum and the living wage for New York City and Albuquerque. Living wage law for New York City. So if you check down here, so as of April 1st, 2024, the living wage rate and health benefit supplements are as follows. Living wage rate is $16. Health benefit supplement is $2.15. And also there's a note here. So the New York State minimum wage exceeds the living wage rate. Accordingly, the applicable minimum wage is set as the living wage rate. Effective January 1st, 2024, the New York State minimum wage for New York City increased from $15 to $16 per hour. So that is the one for New York City. So somebody may ask, what is the difference between minimum wage and a living wage? So a minimum wage is the wage that state and federal government established so that each and every employer pays their employee at least that amount. However, a living wage is a wage the employer will give to an employee that can sustain that employee to cover all the employee's expenses. So let's move to New Mexico and see. If we use Workstream to check Albuquerque, New Mexico's wage, you will see that the minimum wage is $12. The average wage is $15.20. And then the living wage is $15.60. Because the minimum wage is less than the average wage, it is helpful because most of the things you are going to buy out there will be based on a minimum wage, including rent and other expenses. Now that we have finished comparing the minimum wages for Bronx, New York and Albuquerque, New Mexico, let's use another website to check the taxes on the wages you get and your take-home salary. So let's use Smart Assets to calculate the federal, state, and local taxes. So here, I'm going to use the $16 minimum wage for New York City for 2 weeks pay period. Okay, so 2 weeks is 80 hours. That is the recommended hours you have to do. But depending on the type of job you do, you can do more or less. So let's say you make $16 an hour and you live in New York City. One of the zip codes is 10458. Your gross paycheck is going to be $1,280. And then your estimated semi-monthly take-home payment, 2 weeks pay, is going to be $1,028. That is if you take the minimum wage. Let's multiply this amount by 2. If you multiply this take-home amount by 2, you are going to get $2,056. And that's going to be your monthly take-home if you receive the minimum wage. Let's check somebody living in a zip code in Albuquerque, New Mexico. One of the zip code is 87114. And then let's say the person receives the average wage, which is 15.20. And that's going to be for 2 weeks, which is 80 hours. So on that, you are going to make $1,043. If you multiply the $1,043 by 2, you are going to get $2,086. And that's going to be your monthly take home if you receive the average wage. Let's check somebody who receives the minimum wage of $12. So let's put $12 here. If you receive the minimum wage of $12, you will take home $1,688 every month. However, I haven't seen anybody in New Mexico doing the care job that takes less than $15 an hour. So you are more likely to get the $15 and then the 20 cents, or the living wage of $15.60. Now, let's do some few calculations and see whether living in the Bronx, New York is better than Albuquerque, New Mexico, or vice versa. This comparison I'm going to make is for those who do care jobs. So let's take somebody who does care job in the Bronx, New York, and also somebody who does care job in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So as of August 2024, the average hourly pay for a home health aide in New York City is between $17.50 and $19.24. If you go to New Mexico, somebody who does care job will likely take something from $15.20 to $15.60 or higher, because I know some people who take more than $15.60. Some takes $16, $17, or $18, and some even take about $20. So it depends. However, let's use this average 15.2 to 15.60. In New York City, we are going to use the upper end, which is the 19.24. And then in Albuquerque, we are going to use the 15.60. Let's take somebody who does a care job in New York and takes $19.24 for 2 weeks. Okay, so 2 weeks, that person is going to take $1,202. If we take someone who does care job in the Bronx, New York, who makes $19.24 an hour, that person is going to take home $1,202 every 2 weeks. If you multiply this amount by 2, that person is going to take home $2,428. Let's take somebody who does the same care job in New Mexico, but that person makes $15.60. The person who works in New Mexico and does the same job is going to take home $1,068. If you multiply $1,068 by 2, you are going to get $2,136. Now let's analyze who makes more or less. We are only going to use rent. We are not going to include other expenses. Let's start. In New York, a 1-bedroom will cost $1,591 per month for 523 square feet. This is what we are going to use to do the analysis. It means that if the square feet increases, then the rent is also going to increase. And if the square feet decreases, the rent is also going to slightly decrease. So the person who worked in New York got $2,428 and then minus $1,591. So the caregiver working in the Bronx, New York, after paying rent will have $837 left. As I said, we are not going to factor other expenses. Now let's check somebody who does the same care job in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, the person who does the care job makes $2,136. And then let's consider a 1-bedroom rent similar to this one. The rent is $1,133. So $1,133. So that person is going to take home $1,003. Also, if you check, you see that this 1-bedroom site is 666 square feet. If you compare that one to the one in New York, it's 523 square feet. What this means is that you are paying more for a small room in New York, while you are paying less for a bigger room in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You may be confused why somebody making this hourly wage in New York will still make less compared to somebody living in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The reason is that in New York State, if you live in New York City, you pay federal taxes, state taxes, and local taxes. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, you pay only state taxes and then federal taxes. And then your social security and others will come in similar to New York. Also, if you live in New York State, but not New York City, let's say you live in Albany or you live in Troy or other places, you are only going to pay the state taxes and the federal taxes and your social security and other taxes. So if you make that $19.24 in somewhere else other than New York City, you are going to save more amount of money. So that's the reason why you see that somebody living in Albuquerque, New Mexico will have more money in their pocket compared to somebody living in the Bronx, New York. So based on this analysis, you now know the decision to make. However, if it's your first time coming and the only place you can reside is in New York, you can still go to New York and then make an arrangement to move to a different state. It shouldn't necessarily be New Mexico, Albuquerque, or other places in New Mexico, but there are other states where you can also use this website to analyze. Thank you for having the time to watch this video, and please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, because I realize that most of you watch the video, however, you guys do not subscribe to it. So please help us all grow this channel together.